All right, hello, welcome everybody. This is Epi coming at you with another Epi chat, and it's been a pretty long time, which mostly has to do with the fact that I had some health issues, and then also, yeah, pretty much everybody had shitloads of stuff to do, and now we have a bit of a quiet before the storm, before the very big one is going to begin, and I had the chance or have the chance to speak to someone that I've been looking forward to speak to for a very long time, and that is Capitalist. And he's essentially been at Join Dota for a very long time and has worked his way up over a long time very diligently, and is now one of the very top casters in the scene. Cap, thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate it greatly. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing awesome, man. I'm glad we finally got to sit down and have this chat. It's been I am actually probably going to be notorious soon for being terrible at meeting and talking with people. I don't know what it is, but whether it's Skype or Twitter, I'm just terrible at this. So I'm sorry for any of the inconveniences leading up into
Yeah, I
this.
mean,
But I'm glad we finally had it. We got the time to sit down and
yeah,
chat.
I agree, man. I mean, we spoke briefly at the Frankfurt Major. I think that was
Hmm.
2015. But
Yep.
I mean, time flies very quickly. I don't know. Is it the same for you that as you go through your life? I mean, you have a lot of stuff going on, but does time fly for you as it does for me?
Yeah, it really does. They say like the secret to the reason why life feels like it moves slower when you're younger is that you're experiencing new things. So because there's so many new things kind of filling up your memory and your attention, that sort of thing, it feels like life moves slower. That's why as an adult, it seems to move faster and faster. But I don't know. I feel like I'm experiencing a lot of new things with traveling around to all these events and everything. Honestly, it's kind of like the whole dream come true situation. I love my job, and I'm very happy. Every season, essentially, every major kind of hosts its own new challenges and
Yeah,
adventures.
man. I mean, that's I heard that before as well, and that's why I was wondering because I have a lot of a very rigid routine with my work, but you have a lot of different
Mhm.
stuff, a lot of events. So interesting to hear. Um, Now, what one thing that I find very interesting about this particular chat is the fact that you have. Well, you are of course a very enthusiastic Dota player. There's a few things I want to talk to you about in that regard as well. But like you,
Mhm.
you come from the content creation side. You come from the casting side. So you essentially know all of the players, but you know them also in a way where you're not part of this competitive mindset. You don't have the camps and whatever. You don't have the organizations as much as perhaps the pros do. So I feel like you have a very different perspective perhaps on things than perhaps like a PPD that I would talk to.
Mhm.
So is what interests me a lot is the beginning as like your beginning as a caster, and perhaps how from your perspective over the how long are you with Join Dota right now? Is it like 4 or 5 years?
I don't think it's been that
Okay.
long. I think it's been 3 years because I was there for. I think I moved December of
Mm.
2013.
Yeah.
Uh,
And, and
is when I moved.
and
Yeah.
that is like from my perspective, even just as kind of a quiet observer from the outside, it feels like the scene has changed a lot because when you came in to join Dota, that was a time when my like kind of private stuff happened and I wasn't able to follow the scene much more, and then you kind of went into the scene, started your thing at Join Dota, and then grew very big very quickly, and you worked hard for a long time for that. How would like is there any if you compare kind of the environment in Dota as a caster right now, if you compare it right now as opposed to back then, like aside from the fact that you of course changed and grew a lot over that time period, how has it changed like the Dota 2 ecosystem from your perspective?
I agree with you. I think a lot of things have changed. I think the a lot of it, if you want to look at like what is the source of a lot of these changes, I think a lot of them are just the scene
Mm-hmm.
maturing. So everything from, for example, the studio interactions, right? It used to be the Join Dota BTS rivalry, blah blah blah. That obviously everyone's matured, the scene has matured, and we're all quite good friends. There's not really that same level of competition. Of course, there's friendly competition, but it's friendlier than I would say it was before. I would say that teams, players, like they've all gotten a lot better. They've all gotten a lot smarter about Dota, and that's natural as well, right? The scene matures, the money goes up. People have a greater incentive to do better and better. So when everybody and it's not just like the pros, right? It's like the semi pros, the amateurs. Like those are all guys who are trying to break into the scene, and some of them actually do make it, and they bring fresh ideas of Dota. And because of that, it just kind of like pushes everyone to be better, right?
When
So
you
I think
think
that
when you think
applies.
back to that time, do you feel like, oh, that was like, what do you think it was like? It had to be that way. It's normal, or do you think it was kind of childish? Like, what do you think when you think back toward the way how it was with like the camps and the competition?
I would say I mean it was definitely childish. But I think naturally there is always going to be some there's always going to be some friction when you have like basically two major camps. But when I say that, I'm saying it from an outside perspective too, because I would say that rivalry at its peak was before I joined Dota. I felt like that was really um, that was winding down when I officially joined JD. I felt like things were people were getting on the same page. Things were getting a lot friendlier, and I mean, like me even join Dota like helps that, right? Because I had no issues with BTS. I was friends with LD way back in the day. He was one of like the first guys that I casted with all the way back when I was working for Absolute Legends and their King of the
Oh
Hill
wow,
tournament.
yeah,
So
that's a long time ago. Gods
yeah,
was
yeah,
doing, yeah, Gods
exactly.
was on a Absolute Legends, wasn't he?
Yeah. He was like the sixth man for the Absolute Legends team. I don't know if he ever like casted for them, but they ended up going into casting at one point in time after their Dota team. Um, and they went into casting, and I was their caster for their King of the Hill
Hmm.
tournament. And for the finals, they asked like, "Hey, can we bring LD on?" And I was like, "I've never casted with him before." I didn't really know him that much, but obviously I got to know him rather quickly
Mm-hmm.
after that.
I
So
mean, it's really interesting because when I was a little bit active back then, I I knew that. I mean, before that was Toby number one, and it was pretty much only him.
mhm.
And then LD, I guess, came in. Shiver did a bunch of stuff, and from my end, I never really understood what was going on because I was never in that scene. I just kind of understood that somehow there's like some friction going on, and when I was preparing for this talk as well, I looked at a bunch of interviews and stuff that you appeared on, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my impression is that you are, I guess, a kind of a person that has kind of a constant inner monologue with himself going about perhaps a what's going on not only in the scene and professionally but also with yourself and like how can you I guess improve, and you're really open with that. um,
Yeah, yeah.
is that true?
You're very perceptive about that. Yeah, I actually do. I'm kind of maybe it's because I'm an only child,
Mm-hmm.
so I also went to a very small school. I went to a small private school growing up, so I don't know. I spent like a lot of time by myself, essentially. That's how I also got into video games and stuff. So I think because of that, I kind of grew up always, I guess, analyzing myself and analyzing potential scenarios that could pop up, and always kind of revisiting and looking at things from a different perspective that happened to me.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting. I mean, and then you get kind of thrown into this really harsh community. I mean, you as one of the main casters in the scene, you know it better than pretty much anyone else how the community can treat people.
hmm
Can you speak a bit about your relationship to that community and that community feedback over time, like starting when you began up to like kind of now?
Sure. I mean, the best way to really describe my relationship with the community when I was hired by Join Dota. Obviously, I had a bit of a relationship before that, and that was actually kind of positive, right? Because it was like I was Toby's co-caster. People were like, "Who is this guy?" at first, and then there are people who were like, "Oh, okay, he's actually pretty good." It's being compared to Clairvoyance. And people are like, yeah, I kind of like him. I kind of like Clairvoyance. They're kind of similar in that regard. And that was good. But once I got hired by Join Dota, and that's really where I made my first push as a play-by-play caster, as a true play-by-play
Mm-hmm.
caster for the scene. Obviously, I got shit on pretty hard. The need was at the time was where's Toby? Every single time I would put on a broadcast, people the twitch and people were legitimately it wasn't like people were being silly or anything. They were legitimately asking where's Toby every single time that I turned on a broadcast to cast, and obviously I was doing it a
That
lot,
happened to
right?
me
Because
too, though. I know, I
I
know
was the
that
new
feel.
guy. Yeah. You know exactly what it's like, right? And then there's always going to be a natural backlash, right? Because people tune in expecting
Yeah.
this, they don't get this, so they don't like it's something foreign, something different. They don't like
Mm.
it, right? So there's automatically a negative perception, and then anything that you do from there can be perceived to be even more negative,
Mm.
right? So if you have a negative perception about someone, you're always going to be looking for something, right, that kind of confirms that thought that you have,
Yeah.
right? You don't like somebody, you're going to notice all the
Yeah.
flaws that pop up. They're gonna glare at you. So yeah, my relationship with my community is still in my Google Drive document, actually. It's called my fuck you folder.
Oh, what?
That's what it's called.
Nice.
It's filled with various comments that either made me mad or got under my skin, or I mean, not all of them are bad. Some of them are like this was legitimate feedback. Like I have one that is just kind of a constant reminder. It says, let's see, reminder casters to cycle through all heroes so we can browse through their inventory. During that cast, I forgot to continue clicking on heroes, and obviously when you're controlling the camera as well as doing play-by-play, sometimes you can forget about that, so it just kind of has to become automatic. And I saved a screenshot of that thread just to kind of remind me. So it's not all bad, but so some of them are like I can read one
Yeah,
for you right
definitely, dude.
here.
That's so
It's
interesting. For sure, dude. Go ahead.
let's see. MLM. And this guy did a lot of comments. Like that person's a real special flower when you actually recognize the name. You're like, oh, that guy really hates me. It's like, when is Cap gonna realize he is a horrible caster, inflicting huge pain on the content-hungry
Oh
community?
God.
Please make him pack his bags and make Dota a better place for everyone. And then he goes on to, he didn't like the fact that I talked about how I like the old Blink Tiny. It used to be there was that time where like we had Tiny Wisp. It was always being run with Yasha, Manta, Aghanims, etc. We never saw the Blink, and I was like, I like the old days. Remember the Total One days where we had mid Tinies who would pick up Blink daggers, and I
Yeah.
was like, man, I really like that. And he didn't like my analysis of how I said I like that, but obviously then I went on to talk about Wisp Tiny and how strong it is, its carry potential, and he thought I was like contradicting myself or something, but that's neither here nor there. It was just like the fact that like this guy's legitimately, he took the time to write something. It wasn't literally like you suck.
Mm.
He actually took the time to really give his deep inner thoughts about how bad I was and trying to get me fired.
Holy shit.
Yeah, like what did I do to that person for him to want to like to get me fired from my
I
job?
don't think people
Like,
realize how how huge it actually is. I mean, I find it really interesting that you actually have a kind of depository where you put in either things that make you that kind of get to you a bit, where you're like, oh, what the fuck is this about, or like things where you say that's constructive. Um, in that regard, I do want to ask you to perhaps like read one or more two interesting things, because I'm sure lots of people that are listening right now are thinking to themselves, "Shut the fuck up, Epi. Let him read more of that shit." But one interesting thing that I did want to get out there before I forget is kind of the dynamic that in the time when you're still new, you're being perceived as this, Toby number two, and nobody is like very rarely people actually say positive things. Like lots of them just kind of shit around. During that time, you need to invest the energy, and you need to tell yourself, that you believe in yourself, and you are able to do this. Now that you've reached your goal, now that you have fans for the fact that you are just you, you get also fuel from outside, people giving you positive feedback from outside. How has anything changed from that regard? Like, was there ever a time where you thought, shit, if people don't start kind of accepting and kind of even helping me by being positive to me, then I don't think this is going to work out? Or have you always been just the kind of guy that says, I believe in myself, I'm gonna make it?
No, I've kind of always I've always believed in myself. I've been kind of an independent person in that regard, and I mean, the reason I have that folder was to give me motivation.
Oh wow.
Like anytime I read something like that, it makes me
Mm-hmm.
mad. And at that point in time, that one, it's probably not a terribly good way to always live your life like this. But at that point in time, that person becomes my opponent. That person becomes my
Mm-hmm.
enemy. So someone I'm fighting against. So my job at that point in time is like, that motivates me. I'm like, well, fuck you too, then, buddy. I'm gonna prove to
Mm-hmm.
you. I'm gonna prove to you that I can be the top tier caster. I'm gonna prove to you that I can be the best caster in the world. I'm gonna get hired for the international, and you're gonna hate it, and you're gonna love me for it at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. You're gonna change your opinion of me. You're gonna love me, and fuck you
For
essentially.
sure.
At the end of the day, so. I always knew that I would be able to keep going and keep
Do you
improving.
have any like anything in that folder where at the time that you got it, and at the time you maybe copied or screenshotted it, you thought, oh man, that's really uncalled for, something that you thought was really shitty of them to say?
I mean, there was, yeah. I mean, that last comment was kind of shitty. Here's another: get rid of capitalists altogether. His cast suck, and he sucks in this stupid show too. That was for like this dumb show that me and Zoe did that we had a lot of fun with, and I don't know why I picked that one up. It actually sounds kind of bland looking back at it, but honestly, sometimes it's not actually necessarily the content. Maybe it's just like at that point in time, I was
Mm,
just in a position where I could be exposed to negative criticism. So maybe that's why I screenshotted that one.
okay.
But yeah, there was plenty of criticism that was just like, wow, that's really uncalled for. Like that's really shitty. But I like to think that I have really thick skin. I went through Marine Corps boot camp and training, and I lived that life for 4 years. I think I can handle any kind of verbal abuse.
Okay. Yeah.
So I like to think that I can handle that stuff, but it's not to say that stuff. I think no matter how tough skin you are, some of that stuff will,
Affect you a lot.
yeah, it'll get through because you care, right?
Yeah.
Like ultimately, that's why I like was reading those comments in the
Yeah.
first place, is because I cared, because I wanted to know how am I doing.
Yeah.
I felt good about that cast. What did other people think, and how to improve. So if you care, it's always going to get under your skin, no matter how used to brushing off negative comments you
Do
are.
you think it's gonna change over time? Like if in terms of communities and the feedbacks, like what I find so sad about it is that you love the game, and you love the community, and you love your job, and you want to do a good job, and then people kind of go out of their way to just be destructive. Do you think that's always gonna be like kind of the main thing that the community is going to be known for from your guys' perspective, or do you feel like that will also mature over time, like your professional community has matured over time?
I think I don't think it'll definitely mature somewhat over time, because basically the audience that we have right now is primarily 14 to 24,
Mm.
right? Let's say that's our primary audience. Maybe 10, 15 years from now, our primary audience becomes 18 to 40.
Mm-hmm.
We'll still obviously be reaching a younger crowd, but I think we'll have a lot more people, in their 30s, still watching this form of entertainment, and maybe taking the time to provide feedback and stuff. But I mean, I would say, and there is, this is something I want to briefly touch on, is the fact that people will oftentimes see that casters, like, people will listen to this and be like, oh man, Cat must like hate the community and stuff like that. But really, this is just like the negative side of things. There are plenty of things that I've saved, or I've got in my desk drawer. I've got this little thing of just like mementos people have given to me at events, or my Google Drive has a couple of like really nice things that people have said about me, that have really touched me. And anytime like somebody comes up to me at an event, I am like routinely flattered. Like, it just doesn't get old. It's just amazing that people would take the time out of their schedule to come say hi to me and be like genuinely excited. And it just makes me like deliriously happy that somebody appreciates me that much. So in that regard, people may see certain things, talk negative, and people may tell other casters. For example, like, I've routinely seen casters tell other casters like, "Oh, don't listen to Reddit. Fuck Reddit. Like fuck. Basically fuck that negative criticism they're giving
Mm-hmm.
you." But that is simply the language that we're speaking to other commentators. It doesn't mean that we think actually negative of that. What we're telling that person at that point in time is, you need to brush off that criticism. You need to brush off that negativity, because that's what that person needs to hear. Because there's no commentator, at least I've never met one, that reads negative criticism like that and it doesn't touch them at all. It's just the nature of the human condition that negative criticism will always stick with you more than positive
Yeah.
comments. Right? You'll get like 50 positive comments, but one negative comment can stick with you through all of
Mm.
through all those other positive
You know
comments.
what's really
So
interesting? You asked about that comic with that it
yeah, yeah,
describes
yeah.
exactly
Mm-hmm.
that thing, and when you posted asking for that, I knew exactly which one you meant, because I thought that one
Mm-hmm.
was really interesting as well, because it's so true. So it's when you, for example, posted that question and I knew which thing you were talking about, I immediately kind of felt connected to you, because that told me something about you and the way that kind of you also view things. But I mean, I guess that's what a lot of people realize, especially when they're casters, that they probably by per default kind of become I guess educated in these kinds of things, because they have to do with it day in day out and they got to learn how to cope. um, One thing I did want to get out there, though, is, when you said that you're generally excited when people come up to you at events and such, is that, from my perspective, you have, worked extremely hard for a very long time, and you've come a really long way. And I feel like you're really kicking ass at the things that you do. So I think you absolutely deserve the fact that people kind of come up to you and say, I like what you're doing, and keep it up, because it's not easy to do that. I mean, you got picked up by Join Dota. Toby was the greatest at the time, and you still managed to make a name for yourself. And people really respect you right now. The viewers, but also the casters. So I mean, it's great that you. What I really like is the fact that you have that fuck you folder, but you
Uh-huh.
have it adequately ranked in terms of relevance. So I think that's a very good thing about. It speaks for the maturity of the scene in professional terms that it has reached up to now. Um, did One thing quickly, you mentioned that ESL Frankfurt 2014 was kind of your coming of age event.
Mm-hmm.
You also said that you were extremely fucking nervous, which wasn't typical for you.
Uh-huh.
Can you talk about just the time leading up to that? Like what game was it? Like was it a particularly big? Was it a grand final? Like what was the game all about, and what was going through your head?
So the game that really stood out from ESL One Frankfurt was, I believe, my second series that I casted for that event. and I wasn't happy with my performance for the first series. You know, like you said, I was super super fucking
Hmm.
nervous. And people have to understand that's just not me. Like I have a thick skin, and part of it is because I'm super laid back. Like to a flaw, I am very laid back about things. It means I'm really easygoing and really easy to get along with, but it also means that I can be that sometimes I don't put enough effort in other parts of my life, right? So it's both a pro and a con. So I'm super laid back. I rarely get nervous, and that was one of the few times that I can remember being super nervous. And that second series was Alliance versus Cloud9. That was the second game was that heartbreaker where you have that gif where Loda goes over and you see Eternal Envy with his head in his hands,
Oh yeah.
and you can even like he's probably he's probably got tears in his eyes. He's full of just all these emotions because they just played this game two and they came so close to winning and pushing it to a game three, and they just didn't quite make it. Like it was a very intense
Hmm.
match, but the emotion of of that after and like that aftermath of that everything that happened there, that was what really stood out to me because that was the one where I think I proved myself as a play-by-play caster. And in some ways watching that interaction between Loda and Eternal Envy reminded me that when people are watching, while there is a lot of people caught up in the casters and what casters suck and what casters are awesome and blah 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 and all the feedback that goes on, all the stuff that we see. There are so many other people paying attention to what is important,
Mm.
and what is important is the players and what's happening on the screen, and all you are is a facilitator for that. So no matter how good or how bad you are, the game is what really matters for most people. And in that regard, that takes a little pressure off of the role of the commentator. And that was just something that kind of stood out to me. It was like kind of a stark reminder of like you are just you are just there to amplify what is already good. Like the product is already good. You're just there to kind of bump it up a little bit, to highlight what's really awesome about the game or whatever. You're just a side product. What's really important, what all the focus is on, is on the actual game. So there was a bit of like humility, a reminder of humility there, as well as a little bit of pressure taken off of me in a time where I was really nervous and felt like I needed to prove myself.
Yeah. So capitalist, the catalyst, right, for the game.
Yeah,
It
yeah, that's a good
it
way to
feels
put it.
like you leveled up there. Understanding
Uh
kind
huh.
of the deeper thing. Th Another thing was the All Star match at the International. First of all, congratulations, man, that you're going to be at the International Six.
Thank you. Yeah.
Fucking amazing. We're going to talk about that in a sec as well. There was an All Stars match that you casted where you mentioned that you're not very happy with that. Um, Instead of talking about the match itself and what happened there, what are kind of the things that you look out for that make you say, "Oh, that was a good cast" or "That was a bad cast"?
Um, there sometimes it's technical things. So sometimes it's things where like I just stumbled over my words too often. And that I'll be able to tell immediately after a cast, like, oh, that wasn't good. Sometimes it's the flow of the game, or maybe that the game I just felt off about it. Maybe I didn't understand the game the way I should have. Maybe I didn't have the foresight to see what was happening in the game, and because of that, I was always playing catch up. People don't really see it, but in some way, casts, at least for me and probably LD, are kind of planned out in some way. Like when I see a game and I see a draft in my head, I'm mentally putting forward the back and forth of the game, and the directions it can go, and kind of planning for that, and trying to set up the story and trying to
Mm.
set up the hype and for the right times, and be able to provide information for the low times, the times that are in a bit of a lull. Um, so shit. Sorry,
No
I forgot
worries.
where I
So
was
so it
going with
was
this.
so what I understood up to now is like you are the storyline thing. I think that's actually really interesting because from my old days, when you said it, I figured, shit, I could have done that too. That's actually a really good idea, to just make a storyline happen. But it was, what the things are that you kind of look out for that make you go
Oh,
afterwards.
that's
Was it
right.
good
That's
or
right.
bad?
Yeah, so if I'm constantly playing catch up, like I'll just feel bad about a cast. But other times, like, and I think this is the most important thing for a caster is to um, go back through your replays and listen to it because there are things that will pop up that you didn't realize, and you'll never realize when it happens. So and this is why it's also important to listen to feedback, but it's even more important you yourself to go back through the cast because you'll always be your worst critic,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll be able to hear certain things like word repetition. Word repetition is the easiest thing to catch out, as a caster listening to your own cast. And for me at least, it becomes kind of a shock. Like every single time, it's like a little personal. Like I squirm a little bit
Yeah.
when I hear a word too many times, and then I keep hearing like once I've heard it 4 times in 4 minutes, and then every single time after I hear, after that point, it's like a shock to my
Like a
system. I'm like, oh
zing.
god, I said it again. Oh god, so it's those sort of things. Maybe you didn't have the right kind of relationship with your co-caster. You stumbled over each other
Perfect
a
segue
bit too
right there,
much.
because
Uh
I,
huh.
I, I
Okay.
have the impression that you in particular put a lot of emphasis and thought into how do I work with others. But
Mm-hmm.
that may just be the fact, maybe it's just because you talk about it in interviews and others don't. That doesn't mean that others don't think about it a lot. But synergy between you and your co-caster seems to be something that you also put a lot of time and thought into. Um, and one thing, when you think, I know that you and Blitz, for example, I think you feel very comfortable casting with Blitz, and you're very happy when you cast with him.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
so. Can you talk a bit more about like some other people that you cast with, and what your relationship is to them?
Yeah, sure. So I think I put more emphasis on my relationships and synergy with my co-casters than any other play-by-play caster. I focus on that a lot because I think a lot of what makes a good broadcast is not one person, but if you can use the talents of both people, and they become greater than the sum of its
Mm-hmm.
parts, right? I think that's really my philosophy when it comes to casting. So I do think about that a lot, and it works for every co-caster that I've had. So for Blitz, we obviously have a very good friendship. He's my best friend in Dota, and because of that, things are rather natural. But there is always things that I'm working on with him because he's my regular co-caster. So I don't feel I feel like I can take the time after a cast and tell him, hey, these things that you did were really good. But when you did this thing, it caused some problems, right? So I'll talk about, like something that I think we worked together a lot on was the fact that Blitz is very he's very mellow
Mm-hmm.
person. He's sometimes can be a bit monotone, and I really worked with him on explaining and getting him to understand the fact that like how energy levels work. And this is something that I just kind of picked up from watching a lot of other broadcasters is that the flow of the energy in a broadcast is like a roller coaster, right? And while it can peak up very quickly, very high, it still has somewhat of a flow to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? There and when it drops, it'll drop down, and sometimes it could drop really quickly, but you never free
Mm-hmm.
fall, right? It's always going to have a little bit of a loop, a little bit of a curve, and because of that, it's best if I get really hype about something and the play-by-play ends, and I try and draw my cast downwards. He needs to bring his own casting and energy-wise up to meet me, right? Otherwise, you have this really, really, oh man, what an amazing team fight. Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, for
You know,
sure. Yeah.
it takes you out of the cast. If you're listening to that, you feel it's just like when a little bit of a free fall when say you hit a speed bump too quickly or something like that. It's a little bit of like a boom boom. You hit something that wasn't very smooth, and
Yeah.
it stands out in
Yeah.
the broadcast, and it takes you out of the moment. So that was something that I worked on with him. quite a bit, and I like TI5. I've actually been recently going back through a lot of broadcasts, and I think that Blitz got really good at it. I listened back to the whole what was it, Cloud9 versus Vici Gaming with FY going ham as
Mm-hmm.
Rubik, and Blitz did an amazing job following me as a co-caster and meeting my energy levels and amplifying the hype, which is something that Cinderin does really well. So to move on to the next game, like
Mm-hmm.
Cinderin, that's what he does best, is he's able to be goofy, entertaining Cinderin in the downtimes, and when the hype happens, he knows how to come in from the side and be like, oh, what a shallow grave.
Yeah,
Real
yeah.
quick, real short. He comes in, he amplifies it, but it gets out. He doesn't overstay his welcome. And I've actually learned from him. I haven't actually um, changed my style at all to really fit with Cinderin, but I've learned from him, how to be the
It's like
co-caster.
harmonious, right?
And
Like
some
it's just yeah.
yeah, I listen. Yeah, when I listened to that, I was like, that's what I want to sound like when I'm co-casting with Toby, for
Mm-hmm.
example. Because obviously I can't always be the play-by-play caster. I have to be the analyst, or sometimes in the TriCast for ESL1, I'm kind of like the hybrid caster
Mm.
who's the go-between. So I learned from him with that. So with Cinderin, I try and be a little bit more goofy and have more fun. With Merlini, we're friends, and I think we've got this sort of budding, developing friendship that's going to be very fun in the next few years. But it's with him, it's kind of like this straight faced. With Blitz is more animated in the like, because he'll giggle and he'll make fun of me a lot and all that sort
Mm-hmm.
of thing. With Ben, I think it's slightly less obvious, but that also makes it in some ways all the sweeter when it does happen, when Ben straight face, you say something dumb and Ben's just like, you're an idiot, and you have this really fun moment
Yeah,
in a
for sure.
broadcast where Ben is brutally honest. Ben, he just goes in on you, and you're both friends, so you're able to do something like that. But Blitz and I do that as well, but with Blitz, he's a little bit more animated and lighthearted about it. So the audience is in on the joke a little bit more than with
Mm.
Ben. So if I casted more regularly with Merlini, we would have to change something, because what naturally happens is if the audience isn't in on the joke and they feel like there's friction between the co-casters, then that actually takes away from the broadcast as well. You'll see that a lot whenever casters are against each other. It stands out really, really badly. Whenever they're disagreeing with each other, and they're not having fun with it, it becomes really obvious and really awkward for the
Yeah.
audience very quickly.
Yeah, it's like this I feel like energy is a good word to use in that regard, because it you can kind of just sense it as you watch the cast. And I feel like that
Mm-hmm.
is extremely um man, I haven't spoken English in a relatively long time, but it's teaching, I guess. The things that you just mentioned, both the treating the play-by-play casting as what I took from it is keeping it kind of natural and as a flow, keeping it going the whole time. And
Yep.
especially the thing that you mentioned about Cinderin is, you are going crazy, you're casting, doing the play by play, something happens, you're doing your thing, and from the side, this guy comes in and yells in, equally excited, this other information that's also taking place and is also
Mm-hmm.
relevant, and then he stops, and it's very, very yeah, I think people that are aspiring casters and want to get into this kind of thing can really take a lot from this. I have a few more things that I do want to get to, but the last one you mentioned was Merlini. Did you have? I didn't want to cut you off. Did you have another co-cast or other people that come to mind that you want to talk about?
Um, I mean, there's other co-casters that I've
Who
had,
does
but
it
I
not
think
work
that
very
those are kind of
well
the.
with at the moment? Like I know that it's not going to be meant as a personal attack or anything, but what is someone
Mhm.
where it's just kind of perhaps stylistically it doesn't fit at the moment?
I mean, I don't think I've casted with Winter, but I would say that I can just tell. Like, I don't think Winter and I would ever go very well together. I think we're almost too different in that regard. And then also gods, I would say. I'm not sure if we casted together, but that's actually the opposite. I think we're almost like two the
Mm-hmm.
same for a broadcast role. We occupy too much of the same space, so I can kind of tell that we probably wouldn't um, cast very well together either, because he's also a very good hybrid caster, right? And that he can do pretty good play by play. I've heard it. I've been impressed before the way the gods has been able to step into that spot, and then he obviously is able to do the analyst
Mm-hmm.
role quite well as well. So I think in that regard we're two different. But of the casters that I've casted with, I don't think I really have. Um, oh, okay. No. I actually, I do know one. Heen. Liquid Teen. And I'm actually like, I feel like I'm kind of friends with him. I've talked to him a number of times. He's coached for Liquid, so I get to see him a little bit more than most. We've casted in the past together, but something about our casting together just doesn't quite work. And I feel like a little bit is the very formal. I think it's a little bit of the Korean culture, that very formal style. It just I feel like the reason it stands out to me is because I don't feel like I have good synergy with him. And that really stands out to me. I don't feel like we're getting along when I have a broadcast. I don't feel the
Mm.
harmony that I feel, and yet we're friends and stuff, and when we're talking together, it works. I think
I guess it just
that
like it just occurs, right? It
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
happens.
yeah. It just happens, and honestly, like Keen hasn't done very much casting, and we've only cast together two or three
Mm-hmm.
times. The only reason it stands out to me is because he's one of the few. He's pretty much the only person that I've ever casted with that's been like, okay, I can kind of feel a little bit of a disjunction. I can
Mm.
guarantee that if we cast together 5 more times, we
Then you'll
would
find a
probably
way.
we develop really good
Mm.
synergy. But that was the first time where I was just kind of like, oh, and has obviously nothing to do with Heen. I think he would actually make an amazing
Mm-hmm.
co-caster if he ever wanted to stop coaching and going to that, because he's really articulate. He's obviously very smart Dota wise, and you can tell he's got a good sense of humor and he's got a good personality to him. He would just have to find a way to really let that shine a bit more in a broadcast, which it's not very natural, honestly, to let your personality come through in public speaking. It's just not. It's something that I had to learn because I had no idea how to do it in the
Why
beginning.
is that hard? What makes it hard?
I mean, public speaking, I think in general is just not very natural for most people. I think there are certain people, Toby and Owen, I think are naturally gifted when it comes to, like, they just know how to be a good entertainer and showman and that sort of thing, and they're like they will probably always have a job in the days to come of esports. Like I think Owen is like probably one of the single most talented esports personalities I've ever met.
Well, is
Like
that
I
like
think he just oozes
is it
talent.
because he's sensitive and can gauge the crowd, or what is it? Do you think?
No, I think I think it's a little bit more of the entertainer. Like it's something about he knows how to put on a good
Okay.
show. I'm not sure. Like, yeah, obviously, part of putting on a good show is reading the room. But I don't know. There's something more to it than that. Like he is creative, and he's he's funny in interesting ways. Like that's also part of the reason why Toby is successful, right? Is that he's a funny guy, but it's more of his eccentricity
Mm.
that really makes him shine in a broadcast. He's not the funniest guy in esports, I'll tell you, by a long shot. There are many other people that in esports that are a lot funnier than Toby, but in a broadcast, Toby is one of the best because there's something, he's really passionate, and he's this weird eccentric guy, and his eccentricities come through in a broadcast, and you can't help but enjoy that. I call them Tobyisms.
Mm.
The Tobyisms come through in a broadcast, and they annoy some people. I've seen plenty of comments where people, I don't like it when Toby does this thing, but for most people, you hear the enthusiasm, you hear this funny thing that he does, and because of the enthusiasm, you're on his side, and then he does this thing, and you're just kind of like, oh, that's kind of funny,
Is it interesting, like
classic
when
Toby.
you're a new guy and you have your own mannerisms, you get called out for them, and if you are like the king and you have like your things, then people are like, oh yeah, this is so so nice.
Yeah, I actually I'm reading a book right now, and it kind of touches on that. It's about sportscasting. It's called the Call of the Game, and it kind of touched on that. It touched on the old guys have trademarks, and the new guys have I can't remember what he called it, but he essentially was saying that when you're a new guy and you do those sorts of
Mm.
things, people are like, it sounds forced or it's annoying or something like that. From my hometown, Dave Newhouse, he was the sportscaster. He was the announcer for the Seattle Mariners, and he had this trademark. His classic my oh my. It was every single time. It's grand salami time, baby. He would just get super amped up,
Grand
and
what?
he was
Grand
just
salami time?
yeah, yeah. Instead of a grand
Oh,
slam, which is when the bases are loaded and the batter hits a home run,
oh.
so you get 4 points off of that. Instead of grand slam, he says grand salami time. Right? It's just a weird thing. It was like it's so dumb, but he's being so excited about it. It'll like you're just like yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like grand salami,
Fucking
whatever.
grand
Let's go
salami.
with
All
it.
right.
That's straight up a topiism right
Mm-hmm.
there. That is the perfect example of topiism in a professional sportscasting. But um, that guy that's his trademark. That is because he was a legend. But when you first start out, people are going to look at that your natural things that you do, and maybe sometimes it's part of it's just like it's public speaking, so it's not natural anyway, but it's going to come across forced or something like that, even if you are being genuinely excited, maybe just because like I don't really know, but I'm going to theorize the fact that maybe it's because that public speaking isn't that natural. So on top of that, putting forward your personality within a broadcast, within public speaking, is going to be even more unnatural. So in that regard, it's it sounds forced or something like that. But over time, um, you will develop a personality that's more comfortable with yourself on the air, and it won't sound that way anymore, and you'll also build up a
Yeah,
fan
and you'll
base
be
that's more
known, right,
accepting.
for that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, you become known for that, so when you do it, people are like, oh, and then people see it's weird, like reinforcement, when Toby yelled black hole, uh, uh when people first watching were like, what is that idiot yelling about?
Yeah,
But then there were some people who became fans, got
yeah,
excited, like, oh god, black hole. And then some newcomer
yeah,
comes in, and black hole comes out, and they see all these people in like Twitch
yeah.
chat or something, they're like getting excited, they're like, oh, black hole. They're like, oh, people are getting
That's
into
the
this,
fucking
and it
science of how these things develop, man. You're speaking on a
yeah,
very
if other
scientific
people
level
are
here. Like, it's people.
yeah, if other people are happy about it, right, then you're gonna want to get in
Yeah,
on it. You're gonna want, like, what's the joke? What's the if somebody tells an inside joke or something and nobody laughs at it, you're just like, whatever, that's an
exactly. Yeah,
inside thing to
exactly.
say. But if other people are laughing at it, you want in on it.
Exactly, yeah, for sure. For sure. It's like then the fan base, like once they hit kind of a critical mass, they educate the rest and kind of and then you made it. And I feel like that's you've definitely reached that critical mass point where you've done it and now you reach that point. Um, is there anything in particular that in any one caster that you really respect, and to kind of give you an idea of what this question aims at, for me personally, if I had to choose one thing, it's the fact that we mentioned gods. I feel like he does a fucking great job at getting across to the audience what the teams are thinking. Like he would, like they would push and then they would back off, and he would immediately say, all right, they're doing this right now because they know like Roche is going to be up soon, they got to push out the lanes, whatever. And he gives you the gist of what is the basis of the decision that the team just made. That's what I really respect. Who does something in this scene that you really fucking respect, and what is it, and who is it?
Um, I mean, okay, I'll tell you the person that I respect the most in the bracket, like within Dota casters and stuff right now is not because anything that he does in a cast. It's actually LD, and it's because of the way he's created something outside of casting. He's created something for himself, and the reason I really respect that is that I feel like I while I've made it as a caster, I still need to be able to develop something for myself that lasts years to come. So whether that's just being a more diverse talent that is able to go into other games, or whether that's becoming a professional host, or whatever it is, I need to be able to develop myself at a point where I have some sort of sustainability, where I've created something real for myself, other than being, just a pretty good play-by-play caster for Dota 2, the video
So
game.
what has he done
Um,
that you like? The
so
business or?
I mean, creating
Mm.
BTS is like this, like gigantic and like obviously gods too, but I'm closer with LD. I know him a little bit better, so maybe that's just why I refer to LD. But the fact that he created this monument that is beyond the summit, that is now branching outside of Dota 2, is like the most successful channel on Twitch, is all these sorts of things. It's amazing to me. And I respect the hell out of that. But there's plenty of other things about, specifically about casting, that people that I respect and wish I could do. Like Blitz, the way he's able to be super witty and on the ball when it comes to firing shots and stuff like that. Like I at one point I was somewhat envious of that ability, to be able to pull that off, until I realized something from a video Thorn did. And Thorn's another guy who's like really good at that, right? Like nobody will beat you when it comes to banter and firing shots if you're on a panel with Thorn, if you're on a panel with Blitz, right? Those guys share that sort of thing. But and then I learned that it's really important, while everybody wants to be the guy that is doing the shots, like sometimes you have to be the person who takes the shots, and it's equally important for that person, even though it's not the role that really stands
Yeah.
out, right? Like everybody's like, oh, Blitz got that person, damn. Like you need to be able to know how to, whether it's set yourself up for that, or when maybe it's just taking the joke in a really good way, or maybe it's a really dramatic way, like, oh god, you need to be able to take
Mm-hmm.
that in the right way, and it's equally important in that regard. And so I learned, like, okay, that's my role when I'm with Blitz and he's hammering me. That guy makes fun of me so much in broadcast, but we're good friends, so it's all good. But it comes across the audience, I'm just getting laid into, and I'm able to get some shots back every once in a while. That's what keeps it interesting. But it's equally important for me to know how to be able to, in a broadcast, take those shots so the audience enjoys it. Um, and so I really respect his ability to be really funny and clever like that. I respect Toby's and Owen's creativity and the passion that they're able to put through. It, they're able to articulate that passion to the audience, I think, better than other people. It's not that they care more about the game, because there's no way they care more about
Then
Dota
you
than I
do.
do. Yeah, there's no fucking way. But that doesn't matter, because the audience is able to pick up the energy that they put across and the passion that they're putting across. They're able to pick it up. So I really respect their ability to be able to put that out there. I think they're very naturally talented in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
They Other people, Pyrian's another person that I really respect for what he's created from a YouTube side of things. Slacks for working his ass off and being endlessly funny and creative, for being able to create this, what is sort of a budding YouTube empire for him as
Mm-hmm.
well, alongside Pyrian.
I think it's really
Those are all the guys that I really respect,
okay.
and all of them are just for very, like, other reasons. There's probably like 10 of the guys that I respect in the
Yeah,
community
for sure.
for all different
Yeah,
reasons.
that's what I was. That's what I wanted to say is that I'm sure like you will definitely forget a bunch of people. I'm sure, and there's definitely like good things that you can say about a lot of the people that you've worked with. And I think this is extremely insightful. Like the information that you've shared. Um, You mentioned one thing though, and that was that and we will have to slowly start wrapping it up in a bit, and I want to kind of try to get a bit of drama stuff out there as well. See if there's anything that we can tickle out. But since you strike me as a kind of a self not like self-critical, but let's say reflective person, do you have let's say do you have a kind of a list of things that you are working on in terms of your personal or professional self? Like, is there any like top 2 or 3 things that you for yourself are working on right now or want to work on?
Um, yeah, I've got a giant list actually. So this year has been I made it as a play-by-play caster, going to main event TI. Like that was the goal, and then from there, after TI 5, I had to figure out like, okay, where am I going to go next? I set on branding to be my next big thing. That did not, despite I will actually, that is probably going to be my biggest trial, is actually developing a real brand for myself and putting forward YouTube content and Twitch streams and something like I need to be able to develop like a real fan base. Like people like follow my cast, and they're like kind of like, I don't know how to really put this. I'm gonna put it in the best terms I can, but it's like they're a soft fan base. What I do, they'll watch sometimes, and they'll enjoy because it's within Dota 2, but they won't follow everything that I
Mm-hmm.
do, right? I put out a vlog, they're probably not going to watch
Mm-hmm.
that. And so I need to develop like a hard fan base that people and this just it comes down to me. It comes down to like me putting out content and putting my personality out there more, so people have the opportunity to be able to get to know me and like and know me as a person and decide whether or not they do or don't like that, and if so, become a fan and follow the stuff that I do, because that gives me more sustainability in like this business is all about popularity in some
Mm-hmm.
ways. It's about creating content for the audience, right? The audience is king. The audience is who gives you your job. So in that regard, I need to be able to create an audience that will follow me kind of wherever I go. So that was supposed to be the play this year. That didn't really work out. Instead, I focused because I'm just too uncomfortable with it. I think it's something very unnatural to me. It's like I start doing a vlog or something. You know how many things I've written up or started doing, like I've had an idea for a vlog or
Mm-hmm.
something, and I just don't go through with it because I have this bit of, I guess, self-doubt or something. It starts getting into my mind that I'm like, who would really want to read this or listen to this or whatever, and that I just don't end up doing it because those thoughts get into my head. It's every content creator has
Yeah,
it,
for sure. I
but
know what you mean, man. Yeah, definitely.
yeah, and I need to be able to overcome that. So instead, this year was focused on hosting, and I got better at hosting. I developed essentially talents outside of play-by-play casting. So when it came to being a panelist, when it came to being an analytical, like a co-caster, when it came to being a host for Dota Pit, for example, those were all talents I tried to develop this year, to broaden myself out as much as possible. So in the future, somebody asks like, "Hey, can you host this tournament for us?" I can say with confidence, "Yeah, I can do that." Like, yeah, I've done that before. I know how to do this sort of thing. So, um,
So you kind of
that's kind of been it.
you developed
Yeah.
your skill set a bit. You had branding in there as well, and I mean that's a huge thing to tie your fan base to you, and to
Mhm.
get these things going. How has the support been from, like, in what role does Freaks for You play in that regard? Like, do you talk to them about this, and do they kind of consult you and give you strategies for doing this kind of thing, or do they just kind of say, this is your thing, you do what you want to do?
It's been a little bit like laissez-faire. They kind of let me do my own thing, but they've also helped facilitate. Um, so when it comes to certain gigs, like for example, very early on, I did PAX South and PAX East, and I had the opportunity to do PAX Prime as well. The reason I got that first opportunity, I was kind of like a stage host in a way for a company that was creating new
Mm-hmm.
games. So I originally did that because Freaks for You got me that opportunity. So um, when we just got a new project manager, and we've kind of been cycling through over the last couple of years, but when I'll talk to my project manager about those things sometimes, and my current project manager is helping developing a plan for the future, sort of thing, and where to go from here. But right now, it's looking. I'm just going to try and continue to develop my talents as much as possible. Maybe I'll try my hand at getting into production, just a little bit, just so I can try and understand that side of things, of the world that I'm in,
Mm-hmm.
as well. Basically, I'm just trying to, like, the term like Renaissance man. Like, I'm just trying to make
Yeah,
myself
definitely.
as, yeah, as gain as many talents as possible, so I'm ready for anything in the future, whatever may come my way. Um, I can
Mm-hmm.
do.
I really like the way you view these things. Probably I think the fact that you have all these kick-ass events that you're doing, and that you said that you're a very laid-back person, probably isn't the most motivating circumstance to make you, may do like daily vlogs or something like that. But I think over
Mhm.
time that'll, I'm very certain that you'll find a way. Speak a bit about how moving for this job, and kind of the life switch that's happened, because you switched, your place where you live, you switch cultures essentially, and métiers in which you are traveling in, and people that you meet. How has that whole move been for you? Can you speak a bit about, because there's probably people that are considering moving to a different country and doing things like that. How was that entire experience for you, and what are the things that kind of stick out?
Well, like I said earlier, I'm a pretty isolated
Mm-hmm.
person. Um, so is Toby. So I think that in that regards, we have probably experienced less of the ups and downs of moving to a different country and different culture and all those sorts of things, because we kind of
You're
isolate
just at home.
ourselves
You
from.
just need internet.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But so we've experienced less of that, but it also means that we never really integrated into the culture very well. And suggestion I would give to anybody who does something like that, unless you're extremely, isolated kind of
Mm-hmm.
person like me or Toby, try and integrate yourself into the culture as much as possible. Because even like I'm kind of self sufficient, but even now I'm kind of always looking back at America and going, I kind of want to move back. And that's part of it is just because, like, I don't have friends
Are
here
you a
or anything.
melancholic
It's
person?
no, I know. I think I'm like, I'm almost like always
Mm-hmm.
happy. But there are still some things like it's the fact that, like, I don't really have any friends here within Berlin. I don't speak the language very well. Like, I'm really bad at it. I tried a couple different
Mm-hmm.
times of trying to learn. Um, but yeah, my advice is don't go down the path that Toby and I did, which is just kind of like, just isolate yourself off and do your own thing. I don't think that's very healthy. I think you should try and integrate yourself in. And it's just like, it's more life experiences, and you should try and experience as much as life has to offer as possible.
How did you meet your girlfriend?
She worked in an event. She was working for PGL, and she went to an event called IESF, which is a Korean organization. They're the ones that tournament. Like, probably there's nobody listening that knows what tournament that is. That was in Azerbaijan. It was where they had. It was based around nations. So you had like the German team versus the Norwegian team, that sort of thing, right? Which obviously Dota isn't very well broken into.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but we had like newbie and yeah, some other people there. Anyway, she was there. She was working production for PGL. That's how I met her.
Um, How long, like, can you speak a bit about, your relationship, how you met, and what role that plays in your life?
Yeah, yeah. It's been about a year that we've been dating. Um, it's She's helped open me up to a lot of things that Europe in general has to offer. Like she's just gotten me out more. Essentially, is what I mean. If it wasn't for her, like I would be sitting at home all the time. But because of her, I've gone out and we've gone to see like museums and gone out to dinner and all those sorts of things. So she's kind of helped me get out of my shell because the person that I am on screen, it's still me, but it's like an amplified version of
Hmm.
me. I'm not that naturally forthcoming. I'm not that outgoing as a person as I am on screen. So in that regard, I'm a bit more reserved in private. So she helped kind of like get me out of my shell in that regard. She's just kind of like my partner in crime.
Okay, awesome. And she's going to be at the international for you, and I think
Yeah.
that's going to be. I think the last couple of things we're going to speak about, TI motherfucking six, are going to be gigantic. The meta at this moment is extremely diverse. Going into the event itself, first. Perhaps speaking about you professionally in terms of the event, what try to give the viewers something that perhaps they might not know about the event, because recently, we only just like a day or so ago, we got the schedule and things like that. Have you guys like what is your state of information in terms of the event? What have you received? What have the casters and the talent received from Valve? Is there like any schedule out there? Like how is it going to look? How is it going to go down?
I will tell you that I think that Valve has looked at previous TIs and they've seen what works and what hasn't, and I think they're going to try and improve on that. I think the biggest thing that didn't work last year was the panels. I felt like the panels, and I didn't watch very much of
Mm-hmm.
them, but I felt like the panels were rather dry and
Mm-hmm.
boring. And that's just kind of natural when you have a panel that is full of really hardcore analysts of Dota. And they just want to talk about Dota, but that's not necessarily what the audience wants to be able to listen to the whole entire time is draft analysis and that sort of thing. So I think this year they're going to try and make the to be able to offer both. From what I know, I think they're going to be doing two different panels. Essentially, one is sort of like an entertainment panel, and the other is going to be more of like the drafting
Mm-hmm.
analysis panel. And I think that will help make things a lot more interesting for the in between times. Because at the end of the day, it's still important to be able to provide entertainment as well as information. So they have to try and get the best mixture of both at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Do you one thing that comes to mind is Too Good. Um,
Mm-hmm.
do you have an opinion on the whole thing that went down there?
Yeah, sure. I think that James definitely went over the line. There's no question about that whatsoever. That being said, I think James is a fantastic entertainer. I think that in spirit, I think he was trying to do the right thing, which was creating an entertaining show when the the base of that show was obviously not going so well. Shanghai was a bit of a disaster, but I think he was trying to salvage it with as much entertainment as possible. So I think in spirit he had the right idea. Just obviously he went very very much overboard. There are some things that you just can't do or say in a professional setting. And it's just about like there are other tournaments you could do stuff like that. It's just about reading, what the situation is and what's acceptable and when.
Mm.
I think that Valve was obviously completely in their rights to be able to fire James, but I still really respect James. I don't hugely blame him for what he did. I think he went over the line and he got smacked back down, and that really sucks for both
Hmm.
sides.
Hmm.
I think obviously it sucks for James. Obviously, it wasn't real good for Valve either. There was a very heavy backlash and that sort of thing. But I think both sides could have handled it better. Um,
Do you know
but
there was it 1 or 2 years ago? Was it like a leak of I forgot something got leaked. Do you know what I'm talking about, right? Like some paper or something about
you wait, you mean
it was statistics, was
the
it? Picks.
oh yeah, the statistics that got leaked. So the casters all got this like stat
Uh
book
huh.
from like Knoxville, Scans, and Scansor, and I think Nahaz. And there's probably some other people as well. They helped develop this stat book, and all the casters got it. And then from the casters, it was given to one or some of the teams. And Valve got word of this and was just like, that is unacceptable. And so they then had to give it to all the teams because they felt like
Mm.
the stats were a little bit too much information for one team to be given and not give to all of the teams. So
Did the person have any? Was there any consequences, or was it just like don't do it?
I don't know who it was. I'm not sure if Valve knows who it
Mm-hmm.
was. Yeah, I actually am a little bit in the dark about the exact points
Oh, okay.
of drama
Mm.
there, but I mean, honestly, I think it was just like again one of those situations where like, okay, you got this stat book, and people have made this argument when it happened. It's like, okay, but yeah, this is a millions of dollar tournament. Like, surely these teams are more prepared than what stats are going to
Mm.
be able to give them.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. I don't think the stats are. I don't think those stats are going to change anything, or if they did, they would change very, very little for some of those teams. But it's better to be safe than sorry, and you always want to err on the side of caution when it comes to these sorts of things. So,
Probably the right call there.
um, yeah, so Caster probably shouldn't have done it, whoever it was, but at the same time, I don't think it affected, and I think Valve's response was probably pretty warranted.
Okay, so give me your thoughts on the international coming up. I feel like it's extremely hard to make a statement about who is going to be. I think everyone is d'accord that it's and there's a few teams pretty much anyone can win it. What's your
Mhm.
understanding and your opinion of the meta right now? Because people say pretty much every hero gets picked. Is there any like play style thing in itself apart from the whole you got to force the other team to respond to you got to do your own thing? Is there anything that you're going to be looking out for in terms of strats? Do you feel like it's an environment where there's going to be any secret things prepared?
I think that this meta will be it'll probably go down. I think this will probably go down as the one of the best tournament metas that we've had since the beginning of Dota. A big reason for that is the team fight focus. Now there are some players that have a problem with the overt team fight focus that we have in this current patch. So I'm not going to say it's exactly the right way, but it does make a very entertaining, right? So it's a little bit like TI4 in that it's very five-man heavy, but it's not snowball heavy in the
Mm.
regard that it's like, five-man push, end the game by 20 minutes. That obviously made for hugely one-sided games that were rather boring. But it does mean that there's going to be a lot of focus on team fighting. And I think because of that, the teams that work the best with each other are going to perform the best. I think that's why OG, Liquid, and Newbie are like top three right now. I think that's why because they are all. If you watch like the laning meta, like the laning stage happens, and yeah, it affects the game and that sort of thing. And there's the pickoffs here and there, like good moves are made that allow you to be able to find a small opening. But what's really important about the game right now is how the five-man team fights unfold, because there's so much that is given or taken away from that small 30 to 45 seconds of time. So in that regard, the teams who work the best together in team fight coordination are, I think, the best teams in the world right now. So I think that does mitigate some other strategies, but I think that this makes a rather diverse meta that is extremely entertaining to watch. Like nobody wants as fun as, like, from a strategic standpoint it is to watch the build up, the slow build up of the 60-minute push game that are like where the games are like about farming and pickoffs and going back and forth positioning around the map and slowly but surely gaining more and more advantage until the crescendo. There's this big final couple of plays at the very end. It makes for very slow games for 40 minutes at a time, the old Chinese meta, right? So I think this is why this meta will go down as one of the best that we've ever had, because from a viewer standpoint, I don't think it gets much better. It's incredibly diverse. There's a lot of team fighting. There's a lot of action, and the game is still open enough that it doesn't snowball in one direction. If a team wins one team fight, they don't continue to 5-man from there and push the base by 20 minutes and end the game. The game can still swing back and forth, and it makes for very exciting clashes throughout the whole entire thing.
What do you think about some pro players, excuse me, saying that high ground is extremely fucking hard to take right now?
I completely agree with them. I think that high ground, it comes, I think some of it comes back to the team fights. There's too much that you can lose pushing high ground and having to go into the natural advantage of you're pushing high ground. So there's a mischallenge. There's a vision advantage for the enemy team. There's buyback advantage for the enemy team as well. There's too many things set against you that it's not worth the risk at sometimes, which is why you see many of these teams play more and more conservatively. I think Complexity is probably a team that I've noticed, like, very distinctly they've become more and more conservative, but at the same time teams like MVP Phoenix still prove that it is possible to maintain hyper aggression and still be able to win out. Like when they were winning like Dota Pit, for example, that it was still kind of true even back then that you shouldn't try and push high ground without an Aegis or something like that, but they still did it anyway by like 17 minutes. Like no other team would do that but MVP Phoenix. And I think that it still proves that it's possible, but there is a lot of risk involved, and most teams are not willing to take that risk, given that we're playing Dota at the very, very top level, where everyone is extremely good. The skill gap is very, very marginal, and that there's obviously millions and millions of dollars on the line. So it's not worth taking that kind of risk. So I do agree. I think high ground is a little bit difficult to push, but obviously it's a domino effect. You change one little thing about Dota and you don't really know what else you're going to affect. So I'm not entirely sure how to be able to stop that. Like when it comes to hero changes and stuff, like I can always suggest like a small little twerk. But when it comes to overall meta changes, I have a hard time identifying what exactly you should do in order to change the game in the way you want it to, because it's just hard to predict.
What is one hero right now where you would say he needs to be changed, perhaps even before the international happens, if there is one?
Timbersaw probably didn't get quite the nerf he needed, but then again, a lot of that is the current meta. Like he didn't work in the off lane. Blitz and I both love Timbersaw. We've had conversations about him. Like he really doesn't work in the off lane at a professional level very well. But as a mid laner, he works exceptionally well. And a big reason is that you're able to ensure yourself core farm. And that's what Timbersaw needs to become unstoppable. And we've seen that. He really does become unstoppable. Like, he's like 20 armor
insane,
at level 7. Like, he's just going to like massive reach and all that sort of thing. So I think maybe that needs to be dialed back
a bit, but a part of it is the meta where it's very team fight heavy. Timbersaw is good at that. It's very there's a lot of strength heroes. Timbersaw is great at that. He's pure damage. Like there's so many things that Timbersaw, like you just look at the meta and like what's good right now, and like Timbersaw checks all those boxes. So if you change the meta a bit, maybe Timbersaw would actually prove to be just fine. But I still think reactive armor is probably a little bit too ridiculous. Maybe like half charges for creep hits, full charges for hero hits, or something like that. Where when you're drawing aggro onto yourself by right clicking the enemy hero and you draw creeps on yourself, you're getting this huge advantage, and you're actually healing more than you're taking. If you could slow down that process a bit, where it takes longer for creeps to be able to get you to max charges, maybe that leaves Timbersaw a bit more exposed.
Yeah, that's I really like that that analysis. Very good. Do you think, like, is it clear yet who's going to be casting what? Do you think you may be casting a grand final this year?
I think Blitz and I have a pretty good shot to be casting the final day. I don't know about grand finals. It's obviously something that I'll always be striving for, no matter what. I always want to be the grand finals caster, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter that much if you're casting grand finals or lower bracket finals. So I have a feeling this one's set out for Owen. Maybe it's just because I don't even think Valve has determined yet. I think they wait until the group stage happens and listen to the casters. They probably have some ideas on who they initially want to be able to have, but then they listen to the group stage casts and then decide from there. But I think this one's set out for Owen. I think he really good grand finals caster, provides a lot of hype, provides a lot of entertainment, and just the way that the majors went down. Toby, Cinderin did one, me and Blitz did another, LD Gods did a third one. That kind of leaves Owen to do the next grand finals, right? So that would be TI. But I don't know, if Owen does it, I'd be very happy for him. Honestly, my goal is lower bracket finals minimum. I feel like Blitz and I, we've developed enough as broadcasters to at least be awarded one of the top two.
Yeah, I love listening to you guys. Do you when you, like, obviously you have, apart from the fact that I saw on your Twitter that you have a losing spree right now, did it end, by the way? Is it still going on?
It never ends.
Shit, man.
It never ends, man.
That was painful to see.
Yeah,
that was a big drop.
Oh yeah, I went up 10 games and I went down 10 games, like that. Like, it's funny when that winning spree happened. Like, I just don't streak. I grind. I go up 2, I go down 1, I go up 1, I go down 2. It's like that's me usually. But then I went on a 10 win spree and I was like, holy shit, that's insane. And then I went on a 10 lose spree and I was like, oh, holy shit, that's insane.
Let's go back to grinding,
yeah, maybe. But yeah, it was. I'm like 5-6 still. I'll probably try and get 6K before.
So it's still going on. Do you what I like to do sometimes, getting these PSAs out there. So what would yours be? What is something that you've seen in your pubs recently that just fucking pisses you off?
I hate Arc Warden, man.
Arc Warden?
Fucking Arc Warden is such a piece of shit. Fuck that hero. That hero, god damn it, Ice Frog. Like, we got rid of techies. I thought this was the year we got rid of techies. But next thing you know, I'm running around as a fucking support Riki, and I run a little bit too close to trees, and all of a sudden, a swarm of fucking ghosts comes out and fucking kills me. I died to a trap, just like fucking techies. It's like I ran into a fucking set of remote mines or some shit. Like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is that? Why the fuck did that become a thing? Like, all of a sudden, Arc Warden is discovered. Like, oh, I could just place, like 10 ghosts in these trees, and anybody who TPs onto a tower is gonna instantly die. Like, maybe some people haven't experienced that yet. I think it's relatively new. People are realizing that like Arc Warden's one hell of a hero. I think Dota's just a cycle like that. So the last set of nerfs, like Arc Warden, kind of went away, but now he's coming back again. People started running as support. Now it's being run mid again, and it's just like that hero is so goddamn irritating. I hate him.
So it's more like that hero itself pisses you off.
My PSA is fuck you, Arc Warden. That's what my PSA is.
Wicked. All right. Dude, it was extremely enjoyable, and maybe to wrap it up, what's going to be the deal with you? Do you have any idea what's going to happen after the international? What are your plans?
Every single international is like the peak of the year for casters, and it's also a time to kind of reset and reevaluate. So I'm not really sure what my plans are for the future. Every year TI just is like after TI is done, I kind of go, okay, where do I go from here? And so I'm not really sure.
Okay, is it
what I'm going to be doing after TI? But
are you going to be like? Is it going to be just? Are you going to be staying with Join Dota for sure?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Okay, so that's something where you're just going to think about and reevaluate everything.
Yeah. I mean, I reevaluated it last year as well. And I did ended up staying with Join Dota. And I'll do the same this year.
Was there anything last year that was there concretely someone coming up to you and be like, hey, I don't know, come to the score or something and made you a concrete offer?
No, there was nothing concrete last year that would have changed my mind. But I still kind of reevaluated it because at the same time, in this business, oftentimes people won't come up to you. You have to go up to them. So in that regard, like if I reevaluate and think my options are, better, say, I want to go work for Twitch or something like that. I need to go out and actively talk to Twitch and see if they would be open to having me as an employee or something like that. So I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to wait until TI happens and then kind of see what my options are.
All right, fair enough, man. One thing that did come to mind though is we talk about PSAs for in-game. Is there anything that you want to get out there in terms of the community talking about other personalities? Like, is there anyone that you want to kind of protect or something that you want to get out there for people to know? Like, for example, I one thing that shocked me was the way that people talked about, for example, Loda and Kelly when there was like some talk about a child being involved. Are there any things that happen in terms of like drama on Reddit or somewhere that you really dislike that you want to get out there?
I would say my general PSA to people is just kind of be aware that the people that you're talking about, they like when you're like on Reddit or you're on Liquid's forums or wherever you are, it is quite likely when you're talking about personalities, especially up and coming people, like people who are trying to grind it out, people like Grant, like Annie, Llama, Durka, like those kind of people. When you put your criticisms or whatever onto the internet, they will read that, and they do care, and it will affect them. So if you I'm always kind of like, it's this weird dichotomy where I want people to be able to say whatever they want and flame or whatever. If you're gonna flame, go for it. Just keep at least in the back of your head that those are real people that you're talking to, and that they will read what you're saying about them. Like I can almost guarantee it. I mean, I read almost every little bit of feedback that is on the internet about me. I've seen it all. I've seen it on 4chan. I've seen it on Reddit. I've seen it on Liquid. I've seen it on Join Dota forums. I've seen it everywhere because I care about my job and I want to get better, and I want to know what people think about me so I can understand how to be better. And those people do too. And so you think they suck at their job? You want them to be better, essentially, right? So you should try flame them, but also try and give them in the flame some constructive criticism. Because that's for me. Like I can read like I've read plenty of flame that has like that person hated me or whatever, but I still really appreciated it, even if he was calling me a piece of shit. When he called me a piece of shit that does this one thing that I hate, I see that, I'm thankful for you. Yeah, I see that, I'm like, I just got some information. I just learned something about my casting that the audience may or may not enjoy. And even if it's something that like I do enjoy. For example, there's plenty of criticism that people put out there that I'm like, no, I actually like the way I do that thing. You know, and people are like, oh, you just stop yelling all the time. I'm like, no, I like getting hyped. I'm excited. I'm an excitable person. I'm very passionate about Dota. I like yelling. I like getting amped up about a game. Even if it still helps to see that kind of criticism, and then I can decipher what I am going to do with that information. So if you're gonna flame, go for it. Just it helps if you offer a bit of constructive criticism somewhere in there.
Definitely. I want to piggyback off that quickly and also mention that the one thing that's very important and wise that I think that you said is, you know, the flame and the insults, they have a purpose, and essentially it's that insulting and that flame is just a failure in actually communicating something that you want the person to stop doing or to start doing. And you know, that to try and focus on actually communicating that need, I guess, appropriately instead of just flaming. But I think that's something that in pubs should also happen. I mean, at least in my like 4K bracket, it's ridiculous. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's why I'm never going to like tell people they shouldn't flame or I'm a mega flamer in pubs.
Are you?
I mean, I can be. Like I'm probably over exaggerating it. I just had a game where I hate it when people know who I am.
Do you generally flame? Do you have like a constant kind of, oh, well played, this, that, or do you have like a threshold and then you freak out?
Oh, all right. To extrapolate on this a little bit, I do have like some genuine like rules and philosophies for my flame. For example, if you flame me, all bets are off, right? If you come at me, if you push me, then who the fuck knows what I'm gonna probably sock you back in your goddamn face, right? If you push me in real life, you know, I feel like it's okay if I punch you in the face at that point in time. Like you initiated physical contact, so you know, same thing for flaming. All right, you flame me because I didn't do this thing that you wanted me to do. I'm going to tell you why you're an idiot for thinking that thing is the appropriate thing to do and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then if you make another mistake, I'm going to fucking pile drive you for it. Because you know what? You probably, if you're going to flame someone, you should at least be goddamn correct. You know? If somebody flames me and I know I'm in the wrong, I shut up. I don't say anything. I'm just like, oh man, I fucked up, you know, and I don't say anything. And I understand when that person's flaming, I'm like, man, I fucked up. Like, oh well, I'll try and do better for that guy. Sorry, homie. You know, because I understand why that person's flaming. I understand why he's angry because I fucked up and it affects him. But yeah, if you flame me, I'm gonna flame you back. If you say you're sorry, like I'm like, fuck you, you know, why didn't you save me with the shallow grave? And he's like, fuck, I misclicked, I'm sorry. I'm like, all right, it's cool. You know, I'll immediately reset if you let me know that you're sorry. Like I have philosophy, like I have morals, I have standards, but I am very passionate about the game. I am a very competitive person, and my passion will leach through sometimes in my games, and it's also for me that another philosophy is I never like I want to get mad when I want to get mad, right? Like if somebody fucks up and does something and I get annoyed, like I'm gonna get mad at them, but that's because I want to get mad. If I want to laugh about something, you know, I'm gonna laugh about something. I don't want the other person to affect my I don't want the other person to lead my mood too much, if that makes sense, right? So oftentimes when I'm flaming, I'm trying to do it in the most entertaining way for me personally. You know, I tell people to untwist their fucking panties, you know, because for me, I don't know, it's just funny for me when I yell that at somebody when they're whining about something. You know, that's just for me. That's funny, right? It's entertaining to me, so that's the way I'm gonna flame you. So. I don't know, in some way I feel like I have an upper hand, right? If I'm yelling at somebody and I'm having a good time. I
Do you
don't
play
know.
support in
It's
pubs too?
weird.
Like mainly?
Yeah, I do. I play support in offlane.
Okay, what's your favorite support hero?
Rubik or I mean Earthshaker is I'm not sure what Earthshaker is anymore. He's like not a support and not an offlaner
Yeah.
right now, but those are two of my favorite supports.
Awesome. Okay, I think that I guess very personal also insight into your public persona, a pub playing persona, is a great note on which to I guess wrap it up. One thing I want to get out is that you know I really respect your development and like the grind that you've been through, and I feel like that you deserve where you're at for sure. And it was a big pleasure that I had the chance to speak to you today. So thank you very much, dude.
Hey, thank you. The pleasure is all mine. You have made an excellent interviewer in the past, and this was a very good interview. I really liked it.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Cap. Guys, thank you very much for listening. This has been a very long one. Well, if you have any next guests that you want me to interview, then just tweet at me. Leave me a comment and a like. That'd be awesome. And I hope that I will see you guys soon. So that was Cap, and I'll say peace out for now. Bye-bye.